Now we're live.
This is going to be good. So, hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brandon Croucher, CEO of Delight Cafe CBD and Delight Digital Cafe. I am with Mr. F. Joe over here. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Zero technical difficulties besides my camera's randomly blurry today. And other than that, I'm great.
At least yours is randomly blurry. Mine has been a nightmare for the last hour, and I'm sitting here having fun with my cell phone. But I'm grateful that I can be here and make the best of a situation, you know?
I mean, at least you know that lens you paid for on that Pixel is good.
Actually, I'm pretty happy with how it is.
Right?
Look, us boys and girls, we know how to count. Oh, yes, we do. I should have put number 4.
I just think a happy Gomer. You can count on me meeting you in the parking lot. You can count.
You can count on me meeting you in the parking lot.
You can count. And he goes, yeah.
So, Joe, how are you doing today? How's your week been so far?
My week has been, I don't know, the normal, which is good. I always take normal. Daily grind, work on the company, work with you, and then work out and have some me time. I'm happy with that. Kuna Matata.
Honestly, I always like having conversations with you because you make it simple. You aren't overshooting who you are, and you're not. You keep me balanced. So thank you for being you.
I mean, life is honestly really simple. People just make it very complicated.
I know. I'm waiting for you to stop making mine complicated.
But I thought you said I just made it simple. So we're gonna.
That's right. I just complimented you. I'm not used to doing that.
I know. I write them down. I'm actually gonna.
What am I up to?
Way more than you probably want to be.
I know. I don't want to even think about that.
Thousands.
I do compliment people. So, but we have a special guest on today.
Brian, did you just change your picture? That's gonna mess with me so much.
Who, me?
Brian Tracy.
Oh, did he change it to Oh My God Squirrel?
No. I'm just used to seeing him on the motorcycle, and I think he changed it. It's gonna.
You guys know I'm ADD, and then you guys are playing around like with squirrels and all that, attacking me. I love it.
Oh, there's two Brians. No, wow. I didn't know there's two Brian Tracys.
So today we have a special guest on, buddy. Even through all the technical difficulties and everything, he has been in the back having fun, getting to know us a little bit, and I'm excited to have him on. His name's Alan Stevens. He's an international profiling and communications specialist that has worked with international clients such as Disney, Gillette, and high-profile organizations like the Australian Federal Police and the Tax Office. Like, that's a lot of really cool things right off the bat. He helps them all understand how people tick. I wonder if he can teach me how to make Joe tick. Like, just agitate him a little more.
Unless he's my mother, you're not going to make it happen.
That might be true. I also work with business owners and executives, helping them to understand and enhance and engage with their clients and projects, enhancing their presentation and negotiation skills while increasing sales. His parents and teachers and my tongue tied, and with parents and teachers to help them enhance the ability of their children to reach their full potential while improving the experience of the parents, teachers, and students. His latest community initiative is the Campfire Project. The Campfire is a safe place for men and women to give themselves permission to tell their stories, to share their experiences of wisdom from around the world. This is my We Together initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to introduce Mr. Alan Stevens.
G'day there, and thank you.
How are you today, sir?
Pretty good. Sitting in the background watching you guys with the technology. It always goes to rubbish when the technology plays up, doesn't it?
It does. I think I'm showing my ticks like already.
I think technology gets a lot of people on the ticks.
Oh, yes. Look at that. What we talked about on Tuesday. Jessica, I love you. So, Mr. Stevens, you have done a lot of things to understand people. Explain to me more about this getting to understand people's ticks. You work for Disney, so that means you're already pretty cool in my book.
Thank you very much. Well, originally, I wasn't very good at reading people, and that's one of the reasons why I realized I needed to improve. 2 divorces, a lot of broken relationships, business partners who went to the bank out, and over the years, that started in 1975 when I first came to Newcastle, where I'm living now, working with our national telecommunications carrier, and working with different organisations after that, realising that I just didn't understand people. So it came to about 2008 where I included reading faces. So being able to look at somebody, know their personality from their facial features, and then be able to understand their emotions from their body language and expressions. Put it all together, you then got someone's character as well.
Wow.
Okay, that's in depth, and I think that my first question. What's that, Joe?
This takes me back to when I was getting taught by one of the lead FBI undercover guys in the United States of how to go undercover and read people, and it's bringing it a lot back. It's really interesting things.
My first thought that came to mind is you said you watch Faces. And I'm thinking, oh, COVID must have been a nightmare because everybody has the mask and then they're wearing a hat. You had to be like, just stay home, people. I don't want to get to know you. But in all seriousness, though, how do you judge a person's face? Like right now, how I'm feeling because of me being backstage going, this isn't working. But how do you read people's faces who might not be in my situation and know what they're going through and what to do?
Well, the first thing is you need to start to understand somebody's personality. That's the base point, because then you know how to change the way that you like to be spoken to match the way that they want to be spoken to. Now, it may sound a little bit strange looking at someone's face and being able to read their personality. There used to be a system called phrenology, which was looking at the bumps on somebody's head and working out whether they were going to be a serial killer or that sort of thing. That was debunked as rubbish. That was talking about character, but I'm not talking about the head, I'm talking about the face. And if you think about it, I'm talking about personality, not character again as well. If you lift weights, you build muscles in your body. If you, whatever you feel inside, you express outwardly. So if you're feeling angry, you'll have an angry look on your face. It'll be in the rigidness of your body as well. So if you put those two together and you think over and over in a certain way, you concentrate really deeply. And if I do that and I pull the muscles up here, I get these ridges, I get these crevices. And so your face becomes a roadmap, a history of how you like to think and process. So once you've got that, you know how that person likes to take information in, how they process it, and how they're likely to react in any given situation. Then from there, while I'm talking to them, I've got the right language, I've got the feedback of their body language and expressions that now tell me, have I connected with them right? Is there something emotionally going on? And at the tail end, are they actually telling me the truth when they're talking to me? So micro expressions, I use it more as a truth seeker than a lie detector, because I want to use it to build stronger relationships with people.
I like that. That's the positivity rather than the negativity. Yeah.
Well, if you go looking for problems, you're always going to find them. But if you look for understanding the person, you circumvent a lot of those problems. How many times have you heard somebody or you met somebody who looks like somebody who's done the wrong thing by you in the past? Automatically, you respond back to them exactly the same way that you would have responded to the first person. And what you do is, and then you say, oh, yes, I was right because they proved to be the same as the other person. Well, you created a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because of the way that you reacted, they picked that up, because we all read each other unconsciously. Right. And then they respond in a negative way, and that's what happens. So this way I can read somebody, understand their personality, and realize it's not their character, and it's in the conversations that we have. That's when I can work their character out.
Do you ever have trouble reading people who are very conscious of hiding how they feel physically?
It's pretty hard to do. If you're like a micro expression, for instance, the little twitches on the face, when something is said around somebody or something happens around them, unconsciously we react. But then our conscious mind steps in, and that can be as fast as 1/5 of a second down to 1/25 of a second. So if we respond unconsciously, it's hard to control that because our conscious mind comes in second. But right. the expression is already given away. And with the body language, you'll start to see it. You can't control everything. You can concentrate on trying to keep your face still, but your body's going to give it away. Or if you concentrate on your body language, then your face is going to give it away. So we take in 2 million bits of information every second and process about 134 bits. So there's a lot of stuff that we distort, generalize, and delete. So there's a lot of stuff going on that we just can't control. and we can pick it up that way.
That reminds me of when my mom would say I rolled my eyes, and I would say no, I didn't as a kid, and I definitely probably did because second took over before number one, so I'd get yelled at a lot as a child.
Have you ever met someone that goes against the norm of reactions? I think of like poker players. They would have a face, a look that I would think they would train to have that. Like they look at their cards, they have to make sure they're not giving any tells or all that. Have you ever met anybody that maybe doesn't meet those normal reactions?
Well, people will try very hard to make sure that they can sort of try and confuse people with their expressions. And if you think about it, playing with somebody who's playing poker, their body's not moving. They're in a seated position, so they've got a little bit more chance of controlling things. But again, it's the timing. If they have that surprised look on their face, they've opened the cards up, they've looked at them, there's a delay, and then there's a surprised look on their face, you know that it's a fake expression. So the timing will give away a lot of things as well. So it's just being a matter of being observant and looking at the timing. Is it congruent with what you expect? And you may see that one little giveaway of an expression, then they'll put some other expression on. You got the truth. You know what's going on.
Wow. Hey, are you fun to play poker with? I bet you'd know how to like have a straight face the whole time, wouldn't you?
Well, one of the things is I'm concentrating on the other person. And when you're concentrating on the other person, that's when your face could be leaking stuff as well.
So with saying that, you said you've had to learn through experience, even 2 marriages you mentioned, all that, but you come through a lot. You've had a pretty dang good career. I mean, nobody just gets a job at Disney, especially finding out people's picks. What was some of the things you had to get into to be able to know what you're looking for in people?
Well, the main thing with Disney was for their Star Wars Rogue One launch, and my job was to work with the journalists that they brought in to explain to them the stories a face tells before you utter a single word. So that was my main role there. But as far as the reading of people, it's just anybody can do it, by the way. Now, everybody who's listening to this, we all profile people. We're doing it since day one as a young child. And if you think about it, young children, if you've got kids, how often do they push you to the edge but without pushing you over the edge? The children really control, they can read our emotions, and they'll use their cuteness and everything else to, steer us into a position to get a response from us. But you'll notice that when the parent gets angry, the child will then start to pull back. And so the child's reading it. But as we grow up, it's like any muscle. If we don't work it, it atrophies. So if we're out playing sports, we're going to school, playing our hobbies and all the other things that we're doing. While we're doing that, we're not concentrating on reading people. So that muscle just deteriorates, or as I say, atrophies over time. So when you get older, yes, some people are very good at reading other people because they're still focused on people. They have been focused on them a long way through. But those that have got more focus on their sports and everything else, they will miss all the tells. So all I really do is I come along as a personal trainer, so to speak, and help people to recover and remember what they knew when they were young kids.
How would someone go about that? Like, so me, you want to actually let's do Joe just because it will be fun. You want to help Joe recover memories as a kid, as you were saying. How would we start with that? Like Joe, as a kid, he was a troublemaker. He already admitted that. So we know we're walking into trouble here.
I definitely pushed my parents to the edge of what was okay not.
I wouldn't have never guessed. How would we start with being able to help tap into Joe's inner child?
Well, it's not so much tapping into his inner child. If I'm teaching him how to read other people, first of all, it's getting him to be aware of other people. So it's not about us at that point. Yes, we do need to understand ourselves because I need to change the way I speak to like to be spoken to match the way somebody else needs to be spoken to. So I'll look at Joe and work out his personality traits, how he likes to take information in and process it, etc. Looking at Joe, I know that he's analytical. He needs more information before he makes a decision. But once he's got that information, he's made his decisions, get the hell out of the way and just let me get it done. Give me the best way to do it and I'll get into it. And I know that he also finds the errors in things. So if he's got a document in front of him and there's errors in the document, he's going to pick those up really quickly. Now, the documents he puts together, he may miss a lot of those, but 5 minutes later, after he comes back and reads it again, bang, they're there like that. He'll notice them. And he'll notice stuff that other people won't pick up. I know it's about how he feels inside, whereas some people express outwardly, they're very dramatic, etc., in the way they talk. It's all about how it feels inside. So I know, and by the way, every trait has an upside and every trait has a downside. The upside is where our strengths are. The downside is how we then respond under pressure. So somebody who's got the aesthetic appreciation like Joe, fairly laid back all the time, but if he's stressed on something, he's got something he needs to work on, just leave him alone because he needs to work on his own. If everyone were coming over and asking him what's going on, that's going to cause him to withdraw further into his cave. So I've already started to understand how to talk to him. I know that he's also fairly comfortable standing close to people when he meets them for the first time. So if I met him in real life, he's likely to come up and stand close to me. If I'm somebody who needs a little bit more space because being a little bit more discerning, maybe in that situation, I'll move back from him and he'll then step in, not thinking about it. And all of a sudden, I'm not listening to what he's saying because I'm uncomfortable. That'd be because that's if I had the discerning trait. So knowing how the other person likes to take in and process information, therefore I know how to set up my environment around them, how I approach them, how I speak to them. Once I do that, the conversation becomes really easy. And it's very surprising how fast people will then, even those that have kept secrets all their life, will start to feel they're really safe with you and they just open up because most people really want to be able to share what they've been through because they've been carrying it on their own for so long. And to have somebody they can talk to who can hold that space for them, that's a real gift. And the person, therefore, is looking forward to having somebody do that for them.
Well, now I know why you got hired by Disney. You're like a modern-day Sherlock Holmes, sir, and that's a good compliment.
Yeah.
The Sherlock show is one of my favorite shows, and you could run that show. That is crazy.
Yeah, like you literally, like I'm sitting here listening to you, and Joe's said very few words. And I'm usually the one that does the talking. And
a lot of it,
yeah, I talk a lot. I'm sure you figured that out already by me. And I don't want to ask you what you think of me. I kind of don't want to.
I think the whole chat would love that. I think Alan has already gotten an A+ anyway, so why not?
He has. He had me like dropping my jaw, going, he nailed Joe. Like even the closest. First time I met Joe, I stepped back and he stepped in. Because I have a little more space than him, as weird as that is. So I thought that was hilarious that was your example.
Well, he wanted to give me a hug, and I was like, all right, he's a hugger, whatever. Didn't bother me. He had a new tattoo, so I had to be careful.
I am a hugger. All right. So how do you read people like that? Because now you're going to have to read me because Joe's going to make that happen. And I'm really nervous.
Well, I know straight away that you're fairly self-reliant, happy to work on your own. You're fussy about things, so they've got to be exactly right. And it's one of the reasons why with the technology playing up today would have put you into a bit of a spin because of that. I know that the detail's got to be there when you're working with stuff as well. So the detail and being fussy about things means that the work you put together for somebody, they can expect it's going to be pretty much spot on. As you said, you do talk. At the same time, you're also what I call automatic giving. So you're quick to give to people of your time, your energy, etc. And quite often you give to everybody and leave yourself short. And so, and it's
like you literally just described me to a T. Like I that's literally been my whole life. Somebody like you met me for 15 minutes, and you literally just said something to me that I've been told I give and give, and he just hit a button. He did. He got me like, well, Alan. So, all right, I have to ask, what was it about Joe and I that you were able to read these things so easily? How did you know I give?
Well, this is in the actual size of the lower lip. It's fuller. Then that'll be somebody who gives a lot. Somebody who's got a very narrow lower lip, they will give, but they will stop and think about it. So, somebody with a more full of lower lip, they will just give to anybody who asks and quite often leave themselves empty. So when somebody else close to them comes along and says, right, I need something and there's nothing left, they can then start to resent the people that they're given to because those other people haven't responded or have acknowledged it or anything like that. Somebody's got the narrow lip, they will think about it And if they give you an expensive present, you know they've thought about it and they care about you. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. So, and when you think about it, it's not so much looking at somebody else and going, right, because you can use this in personal relationships, finding the partner that matches your personalities. So the first thing is know who you like or what you like in a relationship, and then look for the traits that give that. If you're somebody who needs to know that your partner loves you, and you've got a partner who's got the larger lower lip, they're likely to just give without thinking. So you don't know. If they tell you they love you, well, that may not be enough for you. But if you're somebody who says, no, I need to know. If you're married to somebody who's got a lower lip, if you get an expensive present from them, you know that they care about you because they wouldn't have done it without having thought about it first. But when you took your glasses off a moment ago, as I said with Joe, he analyzes things. He needs more information before he makes his decision. You only just want the overview. Yeah.
Yep. That's me. Like to a T, ask Joe.
Yeah.
If you're on the mountain peak,
he hasn't been wrong yet. He's been fantastic.
He's phenomenal. All right, hold on. I have the baldness too. If I do this, can you see the dots of where I oh, you said that was debunked. Never mind.
That's debunked.
That's all
But you're
debunked.
totally a serial killer by that method.
But I also know that you're good at being able to handle situations that are, say, a long-term process. You will break it up into smaller pieces, which will always work better for you, but you can do the same process over and over. Whereas some people just want variety. They like to get in, get out, and get out very quickly.
Right.
But if you're on a mountain peak, and there's another mountain peak, and you had to go from one mountain peak to the other one, you just want to know where the bridge is. Don't waste time with a lot of details. Joe, on the other hand, will go down the mountain peak getting information, go across the valley getting more information, start to go up the other side, and he'll even decide, well, do I even want to go up there? But he'll put a lot more analysing into it so that when he's talking to you, you're more likely to switch off because he's giving you far too much information.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're talking to him, he's going, but where's the rest of the detail?
That's why I have to have people in between us. Because like I have to hire people for those things, you know? So now where can people go to be able to find your, like, to maybe get an assessment by you? They do a face-to-face to a video call, because guys, it's only been 20 minutes and he just read my life to me basically, and I like, my mouth hits the floor. I have so many questions now. How many kids am I going to have in the future? First question. Just kidding. Just kidding.
I'm not really a mind reader or a fortune teller. I haven't got that side of it yet. I'm working on it.
So, Brett Gordon, can you please put Alan's website up there for us to be able to have everybody in the chat to be able to have his website to connect with you? Alan, do you normally do like one-on-ones where people could call you and be like, hey, judge me? And you're like, okay, like.
Yeah. What I do is I've got everything from online courses to master programs, face-to-face training, etc. I do profiles for people. And with the profiles, you don't have to get on Zoom with me to start with. About 10 years ago, there was a mother who had a young boy at the time, 6 years old. He has Asperger's. School didn't want him. After school's care didn't want him. He wouldn't sit still at all. So I just got her to take 5 photographs and send them to me, because your facial features don't change overnight. If I'm looking at what your emotions are, well, then yes, I need to see your at that point, need to see your body language, need to see your expressions. But to work out your personality, I can do that from your LinkedIn profiles, your website photographs, anywhere I can find your face. And so with that, they send me their photographs and I can do a complete profile for them. Now, in this particular case, in those days, I do audio reports now, but in those days I gave a written report, and she took it to the after schools care and the teachers, who both didn't want him anymore in their area. And she got them to read it, follow through with what I'd suggested, because she played one against the other, telling each of them the others were doing it. And if it failed, it'd be on their head. So neither of them wanted to be in trouble, or blamed for it. So they came to the party. A year later, when they said he would never do presentations in front of the class, at the age of 7, he was up in front of the class. At the age of another year and a half later, they didn't need the psychologist anymore, and they reduced his medication with the doctor's approval. He's now 16 years old, and she's still doing testimonial videos for me, simply because they're still getting results. And that was from the one profile and the instructions on how they could handle it. And I'm doing this with kids with Asperger's, autism, with just a regular run-of-the-mill kids.
Wow. So families that have kids with special needs, anything like that. You now, all right. Wow. Because I just thought of so many people that I want to send to you right now. Like, for real, I have family members with kids with their Asperger's and all that. And I'm just like, the troubles that they have, they want the best for their kid, but they feel their pain and the kid can't express themselves. What would be something, obviously you'd have to see the facial features, you'd have to do that, but being someone who is very intuitive of others, how do you, let's say somebody wants to start doing this and I want to look at someone's face and know them better. Like, you did my lip and you knew that. You know by how bald he is compared to me. I loved it. But what would be the first thing someone would do to even learn something like this?
Well, first of all, I've got a free gift for your listeners. You just had my website up there before. The forward at the end of it, alanstevens.com.au / and then put the word free in. That'll take you to an introductory course that gives you an overview of how this works and a couple of traits that you can go out and start working with straight away. So you can test them out for yourself. As I always say to people, I can talk about what I do all day long. You can look at all the testimonial videos. They're all over my website in all the different areas, even people with PTSD, for instance, and couples and all the rest of it. And you can get that, but you'll never know how well it works until you apply it yourself. So there's an opportunity for people to give it a bit of a test for themselves. From there, my courses are now here in Australia, they're professional development programs, like the points that real estate agents, mortgage brokers, lawyers, accountants, they have to do certain training each year to keep their qualifications. They can do my courses. I've also got a course there that has been presented to the education departments for school teachers so they can get their accreditation each year. And it's the same course that I've also got parents now doing as well, because if you're able to read the child when they're very young, even a toddler, I can tell you what they're going to be like before they get to school. I can tell you what issues they're going to have when they get there, because there's a couple of traits in particular that in combination, they just don't fit the education system. Not a problem with the child. They're great traits for the child, but they don't fit the education system. So if we understand the hobbies and sports that they'll like to play, before they pick their final subjects to when they're in their high school and they're ready to go look at their career, you can guide them on what careers will suit their personalities. Once you've got that, then if that person goes into that study, they're more likely to, if they go to university, for instance, when they get their degree, well, first of all, they're more likely to finish the degree. They're then more likely to actually use that degree and go into the field that they love. They'll find that they'll be more effective. And if they're happier in their work, they're going to be more productive for the company to make more money. And they're going to be happier as well. So when they go home with their spouse, they're going to be happy with them. And if they've used the skills in the first place to find the partner that matches their personalities, that's even a greater bonus. And then they have their children and the cycle repeats. So it doesn't matter where this stuff works everywhere. Everything we do in life is based on the relationships that we have. And if you think about it, all the professional services out there, your coaches, your finance brokers, everybody else, if we looked at a house and we'd say they're the concrete slab, they're the ones to support and hold everything else up. Everybody else is the building above. Where my stuff comes in is the footings that are underneath that concrete slab that go down into the dirt to keep it stable. So if you look at a skyscraper, it can be hundreds of stories high, but the center of gravity is within the first 5 to 10 stories. That's because of the depth that the footings go down. So the deeper you put your relationships and build those strong, the more it's going to affect everywhere else in your life. And so this is why the Campfire Project came about, was men and women to be able to get together, have conversation and the hashtag we together. Whereas in the past, you've got me too and men too, separate tribes looking at each other saying you're the problem. Whereas you stand to shoulder looking at the problem together, there's no arguments, there's no fighting, and people are able to connect with each other more effectively. So everything I do, my spiritual journey and my business are all based on relationships. And that's the foundation of everything we do. That's why all of my services cover all of those areas.
Wow.
But there's only one of me, and that's why I'm looking to create and train my competition, because we need more people doing it, but they've got to be doing it right.
Do you now? Is this classes as well? So like, let's say I'm asking for me. Like I really do like what you're doing. I think that I'm gonna get to the question from the audience in a second, but like I like what you're doing. But for people that want to do this, is it classes they sign up for, or is this something where there's the tutorial videos like you mentioned and your YouTube page?
Yeah, well, they can jump into my online training platform. They can do some short courses, and as I say, at one end, I've got my master course, which is one-on-one training or 1 to 3, no more than 3 people at a time that'll work, because we're working over 3 months or 4 months to make sure that they really anchor it and everything else. That's the bigger end. But how do you know whether you want to do that? So I put some short courses online so people could jump into those and learn a little bit, apply it and go, well, this works. Then I took it to the next level, which was still doing one of the online courses, but also then it's what I call a 3-step. You do the online course yourself. As soon as, while you're starting that, you send me your photographs and I then do your complete profile. So you do it yourself, I do it for you. Then we get together, we go through the profile, we go through what you've learned in the course, and we also look at somebody that you want to build a stronger relationship with. It could be a new client you want to get across the line. It could be an existing client you want to keep. It could be your spouse. It could be a friend or a relative or something like that. And this is why I then use Zoom for that part, because you can share your screen. We look at the face and we go through that person's profile, which is pretty much the same when I do a profile for a parent. The photos are sent to me. I do the profile. I then send them the audio of that. They listen to it a few times. Then I get them on Zoom with me and I go, right, that's the profile of your child. Now I'm looking at their face and I go, right, as I just mentioned, if Joe was talking to you, he would get more across to you if he said to you, first of all, look, Brendan, there's a lot of information here, but what I'm going to do is give you the overview and then you ask the questions that you need to ask. But when you finish that, if there's something there I think that you need to know that you haven't asked, it's all right if I tell you that then. So instead of you knowing that he's just going to be talking at you, now he knows, you know that there's going to be a conversation with him. But you're also ready that, okay, if there's something you don't ask, he's going to tell you about that at the end. And that's what you do. We go, here's the overview, what's your questions? Turn it into the conversation. At the end of it, go, well, Brandon, you mentioned before that there might be something there that you need to know that you haven't asked. That boring stuff, we're there now. Whereas if you're talking to him, you'd be saying, look, Joe, there's a lot of information here, but so that I don't forget anything, I just want to lay it out on the table, put it all on the table, and then you can ask all the questions you want to ask. Because when you start to explain something to him and you're going wide, he stops you and wants to go deep. You go to the next point, you're trying to go this way and he's trying to drag you back in all the time. So this will throw you off track when you're trying to explain to him. So when you do that sort of explanation, and that's what we do when I do those profiles. So the parent now knows I've read them on Zoom after having it on a complete profile of their child and saying, right, on these particular traits, this is why you're clashing. Your particular personality trait is the opposite of theirs. If you change the way you're talking this way, you'll have that connection. And that's what happens every time.
Wow.
Honestly, he's really freaking cool. I'm loving this. Like, I really am.
I looked at his website a little bit while Alan was going over everything, and there's just so much on there. I'm going to have to do it after we're done, but I have it saved, so we're good to go.
Do what I usually do and sign Brett up for all his email lists, and then we'll sign ourselves up later. I sign him up usually while I'm on air. Just kidding. Is it useful at all for people to learn these things about themselves, or more I'm sorry, it's smaller print for me and I'm getting older, or more of, see, look what he did. He did exactly what you said, Alan.
That's why I did it. I'm going to do the opposite of everything you said. I'm so happy he told me.
Joe, read it then.
Is it useful at all for people to learn these things about themselves, or more of a use as they deal with other people?
Good question, Jessica.
It's really both. I've got what I call the 7 secrets to reading people, which, by the way, is also my website with a / the number 7 and the word secrets. The first 3, know yourself first of all. Then read the other person. And then number 3, change the way you like to be spoken to match the way they like to be spoken to. So you always have to know yourself first. It's as they say, when you're helping somebody else, you can't light someone else's path without lighting your own. It's the same thing here. As you learn to read other people, you automatically know yourself. I had a guy who had PTSD. He'd been seeing 2 psychologists for different occasions over 2 years. He then saw a psychiatrist, wasn't getting any results. He came to me and he said, well, look, I need to really understand other people. I said, okay, you need to be able to read them. Knowing that when I started training him, without putting the focus on saying, oh, you're going to learn about yourself, I knew he would do that, so I didn't have to tell him that. So he signed up to do the course. Within the second session, this is my master program, he went, everything's making sense now. Yeah, I understand what the psychologists were trying to get to me. I understand what the psychiatrist was trying to tell me. And from that, he was able to understand him first. And as he understood himself, he naturally understood everybody else. So while he was learning to read someone else, he was also going, oh, I've got that trait. But because, as I say, every trait's got an upside and every trait's got a downside, and I'm pretty blasé about the way that I teach people, because if I'm talking about a trait, I've got some doozies. You know, the one that I mentioned in Joe with the critical perception, find the errors in everything, I've got that as well. The downside of that trait is that the upside, yes, we see all the black and white errors, anything that's out of place, anything that's, you know, I's that aren't dotted, you know, double spacing in words or something that's missing there, we'll pick it up very quickly. The downside of it is in relationships. Hello, I've had 2 divorces and a lot of broken relationships. That particular trait has raised its ugly head so many times because I didn't know it, that I had that trait. It kept on coming up, and I kept on having broken relationships. So regardless of what my partner did, I had my place in there as well. So I can laugh about that. I've also got extremely fine hair. And anybody who's got really thin strand hair is what I call low physical insulation. We are more the connoisseurs of fine wines and foods. We like the 5-star accommodation and things like that. And when I talk about it, I go, okay, remember the child story about the little girl? They wanted to figure out if she was a princess or not. So they put a hardened pea on the ground and put a mattress on top. And when she laid on it, if she felt it, she must be a princess. If she was a peasant, she wouldn't feel it. And she felt it. So they kept on putting mattresses on. It went about 30 mattresses high. And she could still feel the pea. Well, when I'm talking about that fine hair, I've got extremely fine hair. I'm that princess. So when I explain and teach people, I'm joking about it. So they can't help but laugh at the traits they've got. Because you might go, right, well, I keep doing this over and over again. I don't know why. Well, it's because of this trait. But it's your trait. It's not you. It doesn't. You are the larger. It's just part of you. But once you understand that, instead of it then taking control of you, you have dominion over it. So by knowing yourself first is the most important place. Then you know how to, when you read somebody else, how to change the way that you like to be spoken to and treated to match the way that they want to be spoken to and treated. It's not a case of do unto others as they would have you do unto them. As you would have them do unto you. It's a case of do unto others as they would have you do unto them. So if the more you can understand them, the more you talk to them in the way that they want to be spoken to, and you've got a stronger relationship every time.
Joe, you haven't asked anything. I've just picked on you, so I'm trying not to take it all.
Oh, no, I just think it's extremely interesting. He's been spot on. And I think what's really important, too, as Alan said, and I know this goes along with Brett's business and a lot of other strong leaders and successful people, is you really have to know yourself. But I like how easy Alan made it, which he's catering to us by reading us. I know that. To start to understand ourselves to where, people that go to therapy and stuff, it's a very hard process for those people that do endure it and do it. It takes a lot of work. I do have friends and family that have done therapy. It's very hard. And Alan did that, barely knowing me, in like 10 minutes, and I didn't get offended or anything, and I thought it was all correct, and I know that's part of why he's so successful. And I just feel like that's a good starting point for people is to learn about themselves that way so that way they can get into that really deep, dark, horrible stuff they got to endure.
That's it. See, I'm not a psychologist, but I train psychologists on how to read this way, because if they can read their patients that way, then they can then apply their stuff on top of it. See, I don't do therapy. There's nothing that I provide that can be construed as a problem to somebody. There's nothing that they can sue you for. Right. And so I'm not a threat to any other profession. All I am is a possible alliance to every other profession. So I've been training psychologists in the Victorian courts in Victoria, here in Australia, and in that southern state. And they're getting some great results. They're reading people more effectively. They're connecting with them, they understand them better. Those who are doing therapy work, they just change the way that they see that person's facial features are telling them they need to be spoken to. And straight away, the other person's feeling that they understand them more and they open up faster. So we're actually reducing the amount of therapy time just because you start with that stronger foundation. But the only thing the psychologist doing is doing that up front and then providing their services more effectively than what they used to be able to do before.
Is that why you said such nice things about me, as you knew I was a sensitive guy?
No, it doesn't matter who I'm speaking to. I'm always going to be talking to their traits. And
So
that will always come across as being a favorable way to the person I'm talking to.
when you do this, like, forget me. How did you get into this to be a guy who went through so much? Like, to go to all those things, I've never seen facial recognition in college as a college course, and I have 2 masters. So, like, how did you even learn all these little tricks and traits along the way through life?
Well, I've been working in a lot of different areas. I've worked with our major telephone carrier over here in Australia for 23 years, left them as a principal technical officer, working in the computer area, or the data communications. Went out of there and took redundancy and worked with a lot of different organisations. Just before I left them, my first wife left and I had 3 boys to raise on my own. They were 4, 11 and 12. So that was the first part where I had to start to learn. Now I'm back in trying to get back into the dating field as well. So that was out of practice by a long shot by the time I started doing that again. But then when my second wife left for a short marriage, that was the real eye-opener up to me. But about the same time, I'd been working with a company that taught currency trading, and none of the students made any money. So they got me to come in to help them to understand what was going on. We started profiling them with, Myers-Briggs and DISC and all those other psychometric profiling systems. But when we started training them, especially when they put their money on the table, they didn't match their personalities. And we found that a lot of them were trying to second guess, thinking, well, how do I have to answer this question here? If I answer it in the right way, they're going to be a good trader. No, we needed to know their personality, because when you're stressed, you'll always revert back to your own type. And about that time, I also was helping a friend run a spiritual retreat. And I was using a Myers-Briggs presentation at the time. We're doing some role plays. And some guy just said to me, "You ever looked at reading faces?" And so that's when I started searching, and I found Paul Ekman, who did all the micro-expression research and training. And I found Naomi Tickle, an English lady who lives in California, who worked with the facial features. Put it all together. I've been working with body language since the 1970s, and I had my NLP masters since the early 2000s, and that all came together. But over that period of time, the thing that really pushed me to want to know more people, after my second divorce, as I said, I really needed some answers. I'd been a massage therapist for a while, but put it on hold because my second wife was actually talked me into doing the course. She was one of the instructors. And so I put it on hold. But then I was helping a friend run a spiritual retreat. They got me to come out and bring my table out. And I was massaging a few people, and they're talking about out-of-body experiences. So I got back into massage again. And then I had terminally ill patients coming to me, and some of them reversing their conditions, which was bizarre. I needed some answers, and through some chance meetings with an Aboriginal group, I ended up going out bush with them every weekend for over a year, and then got invited to go through initiation. So I'm classed as an Aboriginal lawman, even though both my parents are English. And my youngest boy followed me through, which was the beginning then of understanding the spiritual side of things and getting deeper into to that. So I went from being very material orientated, real world type stuff, to then following a spiritual journey, and found that the two of them had just run parallel with each other all the way through. So it's been a very diverse background.
How does Gillette fit in there? Because I'm trying to think what you did with Gillette. Like, I'm picturing men shaving and people shaving their legs, because Gillette has so many different things. How did Gillette fit in there, and what did you do with Gillette? And then my other question is going to be about the police, what you've done with the police force, and what was your role there?
Well, when you look at Gillette and Disney were doing a joint venture with the Rogue One movie. Gillette were advertising their new razor. the one with the 5 blades on it, and they were using the Rogue One players as part of the ad. And so my job was to, again, this was with the journalist, with the journalist, to explain to them about the stories the face tells. Because if you just, different shape of the beard, you change the line of it, for instance, you'll change the person's appearance. They wanted to know, even though you could change your appearance so people would see you differently, did it change your personality? And so I was able to explain that. So they had 4 pods set up. It was like escape pods at the Pinewood Studios in London. And they had I had the first pod. They had a hair groomer, male hair groomer in the second pod, and then their scientists in the third and fourth pod, where they talked about how they do all their research. But in my case, the journalists would come to me and go, well, how does this work? So the best thing I could do was the same as I've just done with you guys. I just started profiling them and finding out who were with who, and then talking, say, profile one person and say to their friends that they were with, their crew members, this is how your associate over here behaves and everything else. And, longest period I did that for was 3 hours straight. They're just profiling one after the other. There were 120 journalists in the room when I was doing it.
Now, Alan, let me ask you this, because I'm sure this is probably a common question you get. How exhausting is it for you to do for like a period of time like that? I mean, I'm sure that was more like one to remember, but like, does it take like a lot? I mean, obviously you're thinking and analyzing people. I mean, is it like exhausting at the end of the day, or is it like kind of become second nature, like you said, working that muscle?
So if I'm looking at lie detection as far as, an interview or an interrogation or something like that, then I'm using the micro expressions, and that takes a bit. And I'd like to be able to work with people where I don't have to go looking at lies, but in that situation, I've got to. So, and by the way, if I go to a party, I turn that off. It's off, because everybody tells lies at party. The fish was that big, well, that was a tadpole. And they're telling jokes and everything else. It's all about fitting in and all the rest of it. So I'm not the fun police. So I'll just turn it off and enjoy the conversations. But the facial features, I just never turn it off, because if I turn it off, I don't know whether I've got a connection with you. If I can read you, I know that I can build a relationship faster. I did a workshop a couple of weeks ago down in Melbourne, and we had 50 dentists in the room. We started at 9 o'clock. At about 9:30, I'd first of all said, right, if anybody wants to send me photographs of anybody they've got, one of their team members they've got issues with, and they're happy for me to then put that up on the projector where everyone can see it, and you come out the front, I'll help you work through some of the problems with that person. When you go back to the office, you'll be able to sort them out. And I had about, within 5 minutes, 15 photos sent to me. So every time we had a break, I didn't have a morning tea or an afternoon tea. I had people around me. Same thing at lunchtime. We didn't actually get through the photographs. It was just full on all through the day. About 4 o'clock, I did the usual things, sell the master course from the front of the room, etc. Had 30% of the room sign up to do the course. And then straight after that, to show them exactly how it would work, there was a couple there who had their baby with them as well. When I say baby, about 1.5, 2 years old young boy. Because they asked me earlier on if I'd profile him, so I got them to come out the front. I profiled him and told each of them how they need to change differently to talk to him the same way. But then I also profiled both of them. Now, I then said, right, we've still got a couple more traits to go. Well, we're supposed to be finishing at 4:30. We went till 5:30. So that was 9 o'clock through to 5:30. And I'm as fresh as a daisy. Because when I'm doing that, and I know I'm connecting with people and they're getting solutions and everything else, they're finding answers to what I've been in their own life from what I've been talking about, that energizes me. Now, if you got me then to go out to a karaoke bar and sing and everything else, no, I'd be off to my cave, because I'm an introvert. So as an introvert, I can do that. I can get in front of hundreds of people and speak. But it's about this, because I love this, and I could see the response. I walk onto a stage, I look around the room, very quietly, ask everybody if they want to know what I was doing, and they say yes. So I just start profiling from the room, from the front. Then ask them if they want to learn what I can teach. I'm doing a 2-day workshop, which will be 8 hours each day. I don't know at the end of that, I'll still be as fresh as a daisy. So when it comes to reading people, building relationships, hey, this is what I live for. This is why my target is to create and train my competition, so there's more people doing it. And they, as people say, if I once the course is over, what happens? I said, well, you better like me because you're going to be stuck with me. Because we're going to create this into a future. I want to train them up so they can go and be specialists in their field, because as a leader, your job is to make yourself redundant, raise other people up to do the work that you've been doing. If you don't do that, you're in a prison, a self-created prison, because where can you go? But if I raise someone up to do what I'm doing, I can then go and do something else. Right. So there's a lot more I want to do at the Campfire Project. There's a lot more I want to do with the work that I'm doing here. So I've got to raise others up to do the work I'm doing now so I can go and do that.
So I want to hear more about the Campfire Project, but I have a question. If I was to have you come to Vegas with Joe and I in, let's say, the end of June for a ceremony, would you be able to like tell us if the people we're like buying drinks for and that, whether we have chemistry or not, even if you're not with us?
Well, I had a young guy who asked me one day, he said, oh, we're at a networking do and we've been drinking. And he said, well, you want to go for another drink? First he was going to walk with me back to his office, which was on the way back to my place. Then he wanted to keep coming with me. And I knew that what was going to happen was off to the pub down the road. It's a place where they call the office. It's where everybody goes after work on a Friday night, and where they all go and try to pick up. And I said, look, I'm not going to be your wingman, but what I will do is I'll walk in the room with you. You get the beer in, the drinks in, and you can tell me what you think's going on in the room, and I'll tell you what's really going on. And of course, the guy standing there with a woman next to him, he said, oh, he's doing really well. I went, nah, he's going home alone. And he said, but she's playing with her hair. She's doing all this stuff that we hear on the media. And I went, nah, but look at where she's focusing. There's a guy on the other side of the room, and said, and by the way, he's going home alone as well because he's missing all the cues. And so at the end of the evening, sure enough, they turn the lights up in the pub to tell everybody to go home. That's when there's a last scramble. It's like cockroaches on the kitchen floor when you turn the light on. They're rushing to get their last beer, or they're trying to find someone to pick up with. Well, the guys went out, got in a cab and went home. And I heard one of the girls say to the girlfriends, we'll go now up to Finnegan's, which is an Irish pub about 200 metres away, and we'll see who can buy us the drinks for the rest of the night. So they had used these guys to buy their drinks, had been playing up to him. Every time the guy looked to his mates or whatever, she's looking across the room at this other guy or somebody else around the room. And he missed everything. When he was looking at her, she played the right thing, but he didn't realise that there were some indicators of who were looking at him and everything else, but her feet were still facing in the other direction. If he looked at the whole package, so to speak, looked at all the indicators, that's why I take the body language and the facial expressions into it, because when you put both of those together, then you've got the full understanding of all the non-verbal indicators that are floating around.
That is just mind-blowing, Alan. Really.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember from my undercover course with like interrogation, and I know they taught us a lot, was something with the with the feet, like the way the directions is pointed and how they, like, if they turn sideways and stuff, that could be like little cues. And I mean, it was a beginner's course; it wasn't like extensive or anything. But I don't even know if that holds true or not. If you heard or looked into that, or
well, it's a combination of looking at all the trades, because you've got someone who's got their arms folded. You'll be told that that's because the person is switched off. They're not interested. They don't like you or whatever. I gave a talk to the tax office. We had 220 of their top leaders in the room. And when we started, this is in the town hall, it's freezing cold. Everyone's got their arms folded. When I was sitting down, I had my arms folded. But just to prove to everybody how the misconceptions, because people will get up and speak about this, they're there to entertain. And so they'll talk about that. They'll take one aspect of it, not the lot. And so I talked about folded arms. The next, people are unfolding their arms, but then they had their feet folded. So I talked about that. Every time they moved, I just picked up what indicated the majority of them were doing, and I talked about it. It was like swatting flies at the end of the day. Hands are going everywhere. Didn't know where to put them. And so, but if there was I walked into a luncheon one day, and this bank manager came up to me and said, look, tell me about this folded arms business. I said, well, what's your issue? He said, my second in charge here, he always folds his arms. And I go, yeah, so what's your problem? He said, well, that means that he's closed off, that, he's not going to be really connected. And I went, really? I said, so tell me about your problem with this. And I kept on referring to his problem, not his his assistant's problems. I said to him, look, does he listen to what you ask him to do? Yes, he does. Does he do what you ask him to do? Yes, he does. I said, if you're not there, does he do what you've asked him to do in your absence? Yes, he does. So what's he like as a second in charge? He said, oh, he's brilliant. He's good. He said, but I realized that, and I said, well, hang on. Why do you reckon he folds his arms? I said, does he do it with anybody else in the branch? No. Do you take him to head office at times? Yes, yes, I do. Does he fold his arms when he's talking to people there? Oh, he does. So all the people that you're meeting with are high officials like yourself. Do you think he might just be giving himself a warm hug because his folded arms then makes him feel comfortable? If you get him to unfold his arms, he's now going to be uncomfortable. How do you reckon he's going to perform then? So while we talked about that, I went, right, okay, so we've solved your problem now. And you should have seen the smile on his assistant's face. 6 months later, I was at a finance expo, and this guy walking around, I was talking to one of the exhibitors. He asked me what I did, and I told him. He said, oh, can you tell me about this folded arms business? And I said, well, what's your problem about that? He says, oh, not a problem I had. He said, I had this bank manager years ago, about 12 years ago, who had a real bee in his bonnet about us when we fold our arms. Anyway, I asked him a couple of questions and then found out. I said, is the bank manager still with you? He went, no, he went to this other bank. And he named the bank that the other guy had gone to. That was the same bloke. For 12 years, he'd had this belief about the folded arms because somebody made that one little comment without explaining the lot because it was a presentation. That's why I prefer to do education, not presentations, because I want to make sure people don't get a misconception of it and then apply that to their life. And that he virtually for 12 years, he'd had bad relationships with his staff, which he would have had much better relationships with if he understood them better.
That is full circle. That's awesome.
100%, yes. And that goes back to the Campfire Project. I want to make sure we talk about that for a minute because we have 5 minutes left in the episode, and it flew by today.
Oh yeah.
You captivated us, the audience. Like, you taught us. Thank you very much for this today. Tell us about the Campfire Project and why Joe and I need to be going.
Okay. Well, first of all, what actually happened there was that with all the work I was doing with men in business in particular, I was asking, well, what's your biggest concerns? And they said, we're confused. I said, confused with what? Well, we don't know our role at work and we don't know our role in the house anymore. We, in our families, we were supposed to go out and provide and be the providers and, bring the money in and all this. And now we're in trouble because we're emotionally disconnected. We're not there. We can't be in two places at once. And I said, well, what about the workplace? Well, we used to be able to just banter with each other and throw stuff backwards and forwards, but now with all the gender equality and everything, we can't do that. So I realized that men were getting more frustrated. When men get frustrated, they get angry. And in some cases, that leads to violence. And I thought, right, if we're going to stop domestic violence, for instance, we've got to stop pointing the finger and saying men are a problem. Because, by the way, in lesbian relationships, the incidence of abuse, domestic violence, is equally as high as it is heterosexual. The only reason that we hear about more men is because there's more heterosexual relationships. So it's not a gender issue. It's a relationship issue. It's a self-confidence, a self-esteem and everything else. So if we work on that end, we naturally fix domestic violence. We don't fix it by attacking domestic violence perpetrators. They're like bullies. Bullies are people who have been bullied in the first place. So if you go and bully a bully, you're creating the problem even greater. You point the finger at him, you call him to withdraw and become even angrier again. You propagate the problem. So I thought, right, if men and women could come together, we can do this. But I first of all needed the men to be able to have a safe place for them, because it's a community's, it takes a village to raise children, but it's a community's responsibility to create a safe place where men can give themselves permission to tell their stories. That's what the Campfire Project was. So I started interviewing men one-on-one, first of all, telling all sorts of horrific stories of things I been through. Then when I had a number of them go through that, then I brought them into panel discussion. So we've got men from all over the world. There'll be 4 of us on screen. One could be in England, one could be in the UK, another one could be in New Zealand, another one in Australia. We're talking about issues that are affecting men and families and everything else. Because at the end of the day, you help men to become better men. The recipients of that are their partners. So to keep saying men are bad, you're creating a bigger problem all the time. The whole idea is to help men to become better men, not to become the man, to become a man. The men is just trying in competition with everybody. They're fighting. This is where the losers come about. But if you then help men to become a man, they want to be the best version of themselves. Who else do you want around you? Men and women who are the best version of themselves. You're creating a community, and that's what the Campfire Project is. So in that, once I started running the panel discussions, I'd had women in there from day one because I didn't want it to be just a men's group, because it's like going to a motivational seminar. You're all hyped up, you go out, get slapped in the face, run back to the next motivational seminar. And you go to seminar after seminar, year after year, and get nowhere. But in the Campfire Project, the women were listening to the conversations and then sending me personal messages going, never heard men talk like this before. We love it. How can we get involved? I said, put your hands up. I'm waiting for it. So I interviewed the women one-on-one. We then brought the women into the panel discussions in just under 3 years now, because it'll be July 18th, I think it is, will be 3 years. I've been interviewed over 270 men and women. We've had over 140 panel discussions. So best part of 400 hours of interviews, and not once has any man or woman been rude to anybody else. From day one, no bigotry, no racism, no sexism. 2 questions when you come in, both of them the same question but reworded, and they both ask the same thing: will you be respectful of people? People say, why did I do it? We put 2 questions in there. That was your 2 chances. You come in, you're rude, you're out until you can prove that you've learnt your lesson to come back in again. And in that, the conversations, got these men and women just saying, we've never been able to speak to the opposite gender in this way. I don't care about your religion. I don't care about your culture. I don't care about your background or anything else. We've had men who are transitioned into women, women who are transitioned into men. We've had all the genders, all the different religions. If you're respectful, got the right sort of heart, there's a place there for you. 1,800 people in there at the moment, and hopefully that will become a global movement. It's under the hashtag We Together, because as I said, together we solve issues. When we're separate, we're looking at each other as the issue. And that's what the Campfire Project's about.
And the Campfire Project is on your website as well. That's the 7 Secrets link.
No, that's the 7 Secrets. Yeah, that was when the Campfire Project. Just do a search in Facebook for the Campfire Project. It's a closed group on Facebook. There's also a community page there as well.
I have to be honest, this was an amazing interview. You came about, and even reading your bio, I was stumbling over words because I was so impressed. So, Alan, Mr. Stevens, this was a very great interview. We usually end every episode with giving everybody something positive. Joe sticks to the same thing. Hold on, I can make this even work, I think. I figured out how to do this from my phone. Ready, Joe?
I'm ready.
There we go. Joe does the same thing every week, so we didn't even waste his time having him say it. Be the change you want to see. Mine this week, I'm actually going to go a little differently. I want everybody to be able to realize, like Alan said, he can read people, and he knows what's going on in their head. Like, he could see what they are, who they are, what's going on, but he knows he has to turn it off sometimes. He has that ability, and we still go out and judge everybody with our own views of what we think is best. Let go of your judgment, because he could easily tell me all the things I do wrong and how I'm never going to be the handsomest man in the world and Brad Pitt's always going to be better than me. But at the end, Alan is still able at times to set himself free and be able to let go and release and have fun. Learn to do that for yourself. Now, Alan, can you give us one last word of good advice? And we'll be saying our goodbyes after that.
Well, 2, if I may. One of them is the most important thing you'll ever learn is the next thing you learn after you think you know everything. That's why I always go out and learn, test, and work things out for yourself. The other one is what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others and for the community is and always will be eternal.
Amen. Amen. I loved it. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is another episode of the H and Honest Conversation about health, hemp, happiness. And can you give me an H word I can name this one? I was trying to think of something like really good, but I don't have anything off the top of my head. What would you call this episode, Alan? It needs an H word.
I think let's put that one to the audience. What would they like to see?
I want to say humble, just because you were really nice to Joe and I. Oh, honesty.
Yeah, honesty is a good one.
I like that one. So, guys, this is the H, an honest conversation about health, hemp, happiness, and honesty. Thank you, Alan, for being on here today and spending time with us. It really was an honor to meet you, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank
Bye for
you.
now.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye.